Hello and welcome to thejonas.net. My name is Donald Jonas, and today I'm going to do a tutorial video on how to do scheduled backups within Linux. This is the second part of the video. The first one was how to format an external USB drive for backups within Linux, and now we are going to do a tutorial on how to perform these scheduled backups. Just a quick note, in the first video we formatted a new USB drive, an external drive. I prepared another one, gave it the same name. Just one point I want to make: when you use an external USB drive within Linux and you're going to do your backups to it, make sure that it is a drive that has an external power source. You know, like you're going to plug your USB into the server, and make sure it has a plug-in for the wall, because if you run it directly off the USB, it's probably going to end up giving you problems like it might lose file permissions, it might go offline, because you're pushing a lot of information when you do your backups through a USB port. You definitely want to support that USB external drive with an external power supply. Okay, with that being said, let's move forward. As most administrators, we always want to receive some type of notification that our backups have succeeded, or to be notified if they had failed. And to accomplish this, we're going to add an email component. So go to Applications, Add and Remove Software, go into Servers, Mail Server, and we're going to choose the Postfix Mail Transport Agent. It's your SMTP server. And we're also going to add, under Server Configuration Tools, your MTA. This is a GUI that allows you to choose what mail agent you're going to use. And hit apply and it'll install. I prefer Postfix. It's a little bit newer than SendMail, and it's relatively easy to use, and it's very reliable. Let's close out of this. And let's go into Systems, Administration, and Mail Transport Agent Switcher. And just make sure it says Postfix. And that's pretty much all we're going to do with that. We will configure the mail notifications later. Now, on this new USB drive we had configured in the previous video, we need to create a couple of files on there. First, let's create a directory and call it Backups. Or you can call it whatever you like. There we go. And within Backups, we're going to create two empty files. And empty file number one, let's call it Home, because we're going to back up our home directories, home user directories, to that particular file. And let's create a second one and call it Network. Now, if you followed along in my previous Linux file server video, you recognize the naming scheme. Now let's turn these into two compressed files. Right click on Home and go to Create Archive. And we're going to use the tower format. And create. And we'll do the same thing to Network. And create. Awesome. Now that these are done, we're going to delete these empty files. Move them to the trash. And let's put them in a list view. So now we have two compressed files that we're going to do our backups to. And now to perform the backups, we're going to use the utility, which we've used in my previous videos, called Webmin. Excellent administrative tool. You can do it from anywhere on the network. Just sign into your computer. Not going to go into too much detail on that. If you watch the first two videos in DNS and DHCP, I go a little more in detail on how to set that up. Let's log in. And real quick here, let's configure that mail. Go into Servers, Postfix, under General Options. It's pretty much the default. We're going to leave it. Network interface, receiving mail, just localhost. We want everything just to be internal. And put it on the same network class. And hit Save. And this is not an open relay. It's only going to be behind your router, just so to your local PCs, this will send you a notification. And then just hit Start. And we'll minimize that and go into System. And let's go into, you guessed it, File System Backup. Now this is where we need to start configuring our backups. We're going to do it in tower format, and we're going to click the ellipse button, and we're going to choose the file we want to back up. We want to back up the home directory. This would be all your users' home directories are. I have one user created in here besides the root, and that is called test. So all your home directories will be inside that home folder, and that'll get backed up. We're going to add that, and now we're going to have to back it up to a file or a tape device. Well, I'm not using tape. Tape is good. I think tape had its day back 10 years ago. I think there's other ways of backing things up now. I really like the USB drives. The USB drives have really come down in price. You can find a 2 terabyte drive on the internet for under $100, and that'll last you a long time. And they're very fast, and they're very safe, and they're very effective. So that's my personal preference. If you like tape, great. I just find tape to be too expensive. So let's click the ellipse button, and we're going to back up this home directory to. Before I do this, let me just do a quick refresher. When we do this new USB drive, it actually, you see an icon on the desktop, but where it actually resides, if you go into File System, it goes into what is called the Media folder. And it's actually a folder right here. This is basically just a link to it. And this is what we're going to look for when we do our backups. Alright, I just didn't want to confuse you when I browse to where the backup file is. So let's browse to it. And remember, it's under Media, New USB, Backups, and of course, that's the home file. It's going to go to the home tar file. We'll expand these. These are all options. They're all clickable. Not all of them are set up. Most of them are. They'll give you brief descriptions on what they do. This is highly scalable. There's a lot of things you can do with this backup solution. Incremental backups, differential backups, full backups. I'm not going to get into that today. I'm going to keep it simple. So we're going to back up the home folder to a tar file. And we're going to enable this. And we're going to put a scheduled output. And we're going to do it to an email address to test@thejonas.net. And the subject will be home file. It'll let me know if it failed or succeeded. And you can see, you can set many times. Different times of the day, multiple times during one day. I like to keep it simple and do it every day at midnight. Can't get easier than that. And we will just create and back up now. Performing the backup, and backup is done, and it has succeeded. And we'll go back to the backup list. And we will set one more. We'll do a tar file, and you guessed it, we're going to go into the network folder. Network, if you followed along in the Linux file server video, that's where you keep all your network drives, and you want to make sure you back that up. You'll back up different directories. This is just an example. And it's the same principle. We're now going to browse to Media, which is our USB drive. And we're going to go into the USB drive, into the backups directory, and the network tar. And expand these again. And it already populated. This one will be backed up right after the home folder is backed up, which will be midnight, and then it will do the network, which is right here. And we will enable an email address, and this will tell you it was the network file. Give you a nice little explanation if it failed or succeeded. Create backup, and that has succeeded. And that's pretty much it within Webmin. You can populate this as deep as you want, and it's very scalable. Now, to make this easier on the administrator, instead of having to go into the Linux server and always, move files around, or, when you start getting into the backup file system here and trying to figure out how to do backups to where it creates its own directories and you do backups every night, or differential or incremental backups. This is a nice simple way I like to do it. So let's just go into the Samba, which is the file server. If you followed along in my file server video, you'll know exactly what I'm doing. I have a user called Test. He's part of the Jonas group. And we will add this share. And we go to where the 2 dots are and go down to Media. And we'll just leave it at Media. Good enough. Writable and visible, and access to test. Test only. And whoever in that group Test is in. Test is a user. He's also in the Jonas group. And you can get very granular with this kind of stuff. Okay, that's added. Now remember, you always got to set your permissions on the actual directory itself. So let's go into the file system and go into Media. Actually, I'm sorry, go into Media and set permissions. Remember, he's in the Jonas group, and Jonas has permissions to create and delete files. You should like to put it in read and write too. And to the apply permissions to subdirectories. And that's pretty much it. Now your backups are going to go to this USB drive every night at midnight. The first one starts at midnight, the next one follows directly after. And let's map out that drive to my Windows environment. Let's just bring that up. And here's my Windows 7, excellent operating system. The name of this server is Linux. And there it is, the media, and we'll map that out as, let's just say, the good old Z drive. Close out of that. Alright, and there's my Z drive, and there's the USB, and there's the backups, and there are my backups. And you can see it's populated with information. Now what you want to do, this is the easy way to do it. Just when they run every night the next morning, just rename it and give it today's date. And do it to home too. That way you know which day that backup took place. Just put a little space in there. And here's a good secret. Now we try to run the backup, it is not going to run because we've changed the name. So we just create 2 new files. How simple is that? And we'll call that one home. And we will call this one, you guessed it, network. And we will change the file extension to, you got it, tar, and to tar. The software I'm using to create these tar files and view them is WinRAR. As you can see, it's a free download. It allows you to view and extract compressed files. I think there's a paid version that you can buy to actually create tar files, but that's not necessary for what we're doing. Let's just run a quick backup to make sure these populate. See how it says 00? Get in there real quick. I'll go to home first to run that backup. Excellent. Let's run the one for network. Run the backup. And go back. And now look, here we go. Let me slide this over. See, now there's information in there. And we'll go into this one, the one I just created. And if you drill down, there are just some files I put in there just for fun. So now naturally I would name this 12.7.10 and create 2 more files. So every day I will, create a new file, and once that hard drive gets filled up, I just take it home, put it in my garage, put it in my safe, go out and buy a new one, and make sure the backups. Now this requires a little bit of effort, for someone to rename the files. If you do not rename the files, what's going to happen is it's just going to overwrite the previous nights, which is fine too. The only problem is you're only going to be as good as your last backup, which that's all some people need, and that's fine. But if you want to get backups every day, so you work in the legal field, in the medical field, and you need your backups, this is an easy way to do it, and it's not too complicated. There are ways within Webmin to actually, you can just basically have it create the files itself and just auto increment every day. That's a little more complicated, but now you have the gist on how this works, and if you want to drill a little deeper into that, now you have the tools to do it. So I want to thank you for watching my Linux video, and my next video I'm going to try to do one on antivirus in Linux and how to run scans and schedule what is called cron jobs. That's a scheduled task, and that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.